A lot of people think that if you want to go hiking, you put on a pair of trainers and then you're off in the outdoors. Is that really true? Well, there are a few things to consider, and we will talk about them today. Hey guys, welcome to the High Ground. My name is Fabio, and today we're talking about a topic that is actually a viewer suggestion. We're talking about the basics of hiking in Switzerland. Now, first a few words regarding myself. I live in Switzerland. I was in the Swiss mountain guide course. I didn't finish the exam due to an injury. I'm training to get back into it. And I spent roughly 200 days per year in the outdoors, or a substantial amount of time. Now, the suggestion for this video came because I actually asked you, my viewers, about the content that you guys are interested in, and I found that this topic is one that fits the channel very well. There have been a lot of great suggestions, and we will get through all of them. But today we will start with this one, and I think it's a particularly important one because I see a lot of people who have never been to Switzerland, who are new to Switzerland, who maybe moved here, who are on vacation, who really don't understand what hiking in Switzerland means. Because hiking in Switzerland can really be a very relaxed stroll, up to actually a full day in the mountain where you really have to climb stuff. And I'd like to introduce you to the concepts that we have here, how those ways are signed so that you understand which sign means what, and also how to navigate the whole system here. Now, Switzerland has quite a long mountain tradition, as you can imagine. Before the 20th century, mountaineering was not a real thing for most people in Switzerland. The mountains were a hostile environment that was more an adversary, and that shift only came towards a more, positive view of the mountains and the outdoors during the beginning of the 20th century. And during the 1930s and 40s, the first actual hiking trails were set up. People started to establish signposts and make the mountains more accessible. But then came the Second World War. And if Switzerland didn't want something in the Second World War, is to give foreigners any possibility to navigate the mountains easier. So all the signposts have been taken down in the Second World War. And afterwards, they have been slowly erected again. And now we really have a very good hiking infrastructure, if not overall a very good infrastructure for mountaineering and alpinism. Now let's start with the very basics. For hiking, we have three essential markings on our trail. This is the first one. It's just the ordinary yellow hiking trail sign. These are quite easy hiking trails. We will get into the gear that you should bring and all that stuff in a little while. But this is really the basic class of hiking trails where anybody can, with the right equipment, start their hiking adventure on. Then we have the next marking. It's the white, red and white stripes. You can see them here. And these are more advanced hikes. They can get very steep, but generally there is a way there. And if you have to climb something, you will likely find change or some stuff to hold on to. So the people who build out these ways really will provide you with additional aids to actually get over them. And then the highest class of hiking trails that we have, the Alpine trails, have a white, blue and white marking. And you won't find a way everywhere where you have such a marking. It's possible that you have to traverse steep snowfields, that you have to traverse slippery patches of grass. and these hiking trails can actually go up to second, and third class climbing grounds. So you really have to be able to at least be somewhat mobile in the mountains, or with all four digits. So it's really not only walking anymore. Now, those three classes are accompanied by an actual system to determine the difficulty of a hike. And this is the T system. It goes from T1 to T6. T1 is the easiest and T6 are the hardest routes. Let's go through the different routes right now. Okay, so let's start with T1. T1 is fairly easy terrain. It's usually well constructed footpath. If there are any exposed areas, they are made secure with fixed cables or railings, and almost anybody can go out and venture on such a hike. T2 is already called mountain hiking. There is still a continuous footpath, but you have more exposed areas. Partially this can get a little bit steep, and there is of course a certain risk that you could fall somewhere, but it's really not climbing. Now then we get more into the difficult terrain with T3. And here it is important that with T3 the path is not always obvious. So you have to be a little bit acquainted with navigating, and also you may need your hands at certain occasions to hold on to stuff. T4 is also occasionally pathless. In certain places you will definitely need to use your hands, and it's also possible that you have quite exposed terrain like steep grass slopes, rock ledges, etc. Here we also have the possibility that you already get onto a glacier, only with a very low crevasse risk, if not no crevasse risks at all. Now with T5 we get into more difficult alpine hiking. These hikes are often pathless. You have individual easy climbing passages that you should be able to master. Challenging terrain, quite exposed, steep cliffs, bare glaciers and slopes which are exposed to some risks of falling. So this is already not a joke anymore, but these are more the serious hikes where we get into here. Last but not least, we have T6. I can show you a short snippet of a T6 hike so that you can get an impression of it. One of the most deadly mountains in Switzerland is actually a T6 hike. And there you often don't have a way anymore. You might have a blue point somewhere that gets you in the right direction. And you should be able to climb and free solo a lot of easy and moderate terrain up to second and third degree climbing. Now the list I showed you is an official classification by the Swiss Alpine Club. You will find a link to this file in the description of the YouTube video below so that you can take it for you and you have a quite good overview on the climbing difficulties or hiking difficulties in Switzerland. Now, if you're out and hiking, most of the time you will see the way markings that I already showed you. And they will make sure that you stay on the right path, that you have a confirmation that you are still on the path. But there are also signposts. And you need to understand how to read such a signpost. And this is what I'd like to explain to you now. So yeah, let's have a look at one of these guys. Okay, so we have the signpost here, and I put up some numbers and will walk you through what each of them means. So where you see the number 1, this is your current position and altitude above sea level. This can be quite important to match it with a map that you might have with you, or of course if you need to call search and rescue, this is also a very reliable way to determine where you currently are. Then at the number 2 we actually have destinations. So this is where the specific way will lead you to. Now as you can see, there is on one of the signs is a line between the destinations. That means this way will split up at some point, so you can expect another signpost to show you when there is a split, which way you have to go to reach each of these destinations. Number 3 is the expected hiking time without breaks. If you're unsure how to really estimate your hiking time, I made a video about that one. I'll link it somewhere up here. Here we go. Number 4 is the marking or the classification of the hiking trail. We already talked about them. Here you can see we have examples where we get into white, red, and white area, and we have some examples with only yellow arrows. That means you stay in the yellow area. Then, as I said, number 5, this is a dividing line. It means that some way down the line, this trail will split up and lead to different destinations. The number 6, these are symbols. They can either point towards a place where you can hop on public transportation, where you might find a bike path, where you might find a hut or a shelter or a place to light a fire. So all these useful things are indicated by those symbols. And last but not least, down below the sign themselves, you see those big numbers. In this case, it's 57. This means that this trail is part of a bigger hiking route. Usually these are very beautiful routes. Yeah, it's very well worth that you check out the bigger net in that regard in Switzerland. Okay, so now that we talked about how to navigate the Swiss hiking trail system, let's briefly talk about the very essentials of gear. I made a video about choosing the right hiking boot. I will link that also somewhere up here and in the description below, so then you have both links. There I really get extensive into how to choose the proper climbing boot or the proper hiking boot. So I don't want to reiterate this, but yeah, please be aware you need proper boots. Most of the hiking trails are not made for sneakers or trainers. Now, the second thing that you should bring with you is some isolation equipment, some equipment that will protect you from the weather. Weather in the mountains can change rapidly, so it's always better to bring a little bit more gear to keep you warm than to really leave all the stuff alone and go up a mountain with hot pants and t-shirts. So please don't do that. Especially for winter, I also made a video about that. I'll also link that here and in the description below. Where I go through the climbing gear that I wear in winter, or the hiking gear. I always say climbing, it's for me the same. But where I go through the climbing gear that I wear in winter, how I layer. I also made a layering tutorial. You will all find that in the description below. Last but not least, communications. Usually we have a quite good cell phone reception in Switzerland. There are very few hiking trails where you won't have cell phone reception. It would still make sense to maybe talk to the local tourism office just to make sure that you would be able, in a case of emergency, to reach out for help. Okay, so this was already the main part. Now I want to go over a few frequently asked questions that came up. And this is why I have my mobile phone in my hand. Now, the first question I got is, what should I do if I get lost or find the trail markings unclear? Well, that's a very good question, because especially with the more difficult hikes, it is possible that you will have to go quite a distance before you get the next way marking. So I would suggest don't treat way markings as an actual mean for navigation, but treat them as confirmation that you are still on the right way, and plan so that you would be able to go on the hike even without those markings. That's the best thing that you can do. Of course, if you're unsure, if you get into steep terrain that shouldn't be there according to the hiking class, it's better to turn around, right? And yeah, that's as much as I can tell you, right? If you're more out in the mountains, you will get a certain feel where you would expect a way to be, but obviously that needs a lot of experience. The next question is, are there any apps or websites where I can find detailed maps of the trails? Yes, there is. The Swiss government has an official app where you can find very detailed topographic maps. You can also download them for offline use. It's the Swiss GeoMap. I will provide you with a link in the description below. Third question is, what kind of wildlife might I encounter on these trails and how should I react? Well, the good thing is Switzerland has predominantly very peaceful wildlife. So you might see deer, you might see mountain goats, but we generally don't have dangerous wildlife. Now, there are some wolf packs out there coming back, but usually they stay away from people. Still, if you're unsure how to react to more predatory animals like wolves, bears, cougars, etc., mountain lions, I actually also made a video about that one. A lot of references to other videos of mine, so you will find it in the description below. One thing I want to make you aware of that is often underestimated, especially by tourists, are cows. Now, cows are generally, if they're out in the mountains, they are quite peaceful. The only time when this is not the case is if they have calves. But you will actually see signs, warning signs, hey, this is a cow herd that has calves with them. Don't pass through it, go around. Usually this part of the way will be closed with a redirection. So I would strongly recommend to adhere at that. We even had deaths in the last years because people have been trampled to death by cows that were protecting their calves. Also, usually you can bring your dog with you. It of course depends on how well the dog is acquainted to mountainous terrain. But within a cow herd, it makes sense to keep your dog very short at the leash or even circumvent the cow herds completely. Yeah, the next question goes into this. Can I hike with my dog on these trails? Well, it depends on the dog, right? If you are going out for a blue trail, white, blue, white, so the highest class, you will for sure have to have a possibility to carry your dog while still using your hands, right? So I would say these are less suited for ordinary dogs. I would say with the yellow hiking trails and the easier red, white, red, white, red, white hiking trails, a dog shouldn't be an issue. You have to keep them on a leash during certain times of the year if you're in a forest. But you will see signs there that provide you with all that information. Generally, yes, you can bring a dog. Are there any etiquettes or unspoken rules I should be aware of while hiking in Switzerland? Not so much. Leave no trace, right? Bring your, take your garbage with you, don't leave it behind. Common decency. I wouldn't say that there is something specific. Be a little bit careful with lighting fires and stuff, but usually Swiss people are quite relaxed. What should I carry in my day pack for a hike in the Swiss mountains? Well, as said, gear is quite a topic, but for a minimum I would bring water, I would bring something to drink, I would bring a space blanket, an insulation jacket, and a hat. So additionally, if you're out or up there a little bit higher, then bring a pair of sunglasses. Even if you start on clouded weather, bring sunglasses. And the last question is, are these trails accessible year-round or are there seasonal closures? there are no official closures in Switzerland. It depends a little bit on the altitude region where you are on your way, right? Of course, if you're higher up in the mountains, you will get snow. I would say most of the hiking trails are not accessible in the winter. There are special winter hiking trails. There are also special trail markings for snowshoeing and backcountry skiing. But I would say the hiking trails, especially in the higher regions, late spring until mid fall, late fall. Okay, that's it for today. I already provided you with quite a few links and cross references to videos I already made. I will also link the homepage of the Swiss Alpine Club in the description below. I will also link the page from Schweizer Wanderwege, Swiss hiking trails, also very useful. And yeah, with that, just make sure that you plan accordingly, take care with the weather, and then you will have a great time in the Swiss mountains. I've got nothing else for you. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any question or any video suggestion, please put it in the comments below. If you liked that video, give us a thumbs up. Remember to follow the channel. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate that you watched this video, and I'll see you next time.